Oh, yay. Okay, cool. We are live. I love it when it says we are live. It reminds me of projects. I work in the project environment in my professional capacity. So anyway, hello everybody. Good evening if you're in South Africa. Good morning if you're in another part of the world. Good afternoon, and hello to all those who will obviously watch this recording after we have gone live. I'm really quite excited about tonight's conversation. It's been a conversation that I've been wanting to have, and to have somebody I absolutely love and admire is a true blessing. So my name is Bongeka Mhlongo, because I never want to assume that everybody knows who I am. I'm the author of this book, Thinking in Full Color, Multicolored Ideas for Conversations, which is really, I think Thinking in Full Color is really the foundation piece for the Full Color Leader series. I think those who've engaged with my body of work and my book, they know that it is a collection of 77 essays. And I say in the book that these essays are meant to trigger thinking. They're meant to trigger conversations in various social settings, and conversations that really impact on us as a humanity, impact on the human condition, and really challenge us in terms of how we frame the world that we are in. So today's conversation is a continuation of some of the conversations in this book. And the topic that we are unpacking today is the future of literature. How might AI change the role of authors and the publishing industry? And I'm quite honored to have Melinda Ferguson tonight, who is one of South Africa's, I think, gems. Really, she's a seasoned journalist. She is a best-selling author and an incredible publisher. She will obviously introduce herself. But before we get into the nitty-gritties of the conversation, Melinda, how are you? How are you doing? How's your soul feeling?
I am sitting in Cape Town, freezing my ass off. I keep going, why did I move here when it's winter? Because Joburg was always a lot better. But I won't
Really?
go, yeah, for winter, definitely. So I've got a
Yeah.
major, coat. It looks like I'm in the South Pole, but yeah. So I'm cold, but I'm
Look at
very
you.
excited to meet
Yeah.
you. And as I was saying before we came live, there was just something about, I get asked for a lot of things. I often can't do them, but there was something about you, and I
Yeah.
don't know you, but I'm kind of feeling like I'm getting to know you very quickly. There was just something about the way that you asked me, and I'm also really interested in
Mm.
this conversation. I don't know all the answers, but it
Yeah.
felt like my brain started getting excited to actually have a conversation about this.
Oh man, that's so beautiful, and thanks so much, Melinda. And I think we said this, before we went live, that again, I don't take for granted when especially prominent people and people who have contributed immensely. I mean, you've contributed. I mean, you'll talk about your background when just shortly, but in the media landscape, in the literature landscape, you've contributed in the birthing of many authors, and for you to say yes, my small growing platform is so big, because again, we live in a society that is so big on followership and being a
Mm,
celebrity and being and following rich people, but people like you, even people like Professor Pakeng, who actually wrote the foreword for my book when it was still in its elementary stages. I always say to her whenever I send her a message that, Prof, what you did for me was so
wow.
incredible, to believe in the small beginning of
Mm.
somebody, when you didn't have to. So I'm so truly grateful. So, Melinda, I mean, obviously, I know you, I love you, but there are people who probably see this, especially maybe some people in my community who have never heard of Melinda, who have never engaged with your work. So maybe
Mm.
can you introduce yourself, but in the most human form, just to like where are you from, who are you, where were you born, and maybe then in as part of your introduction, how did you end up in the writing enterprise, or maybe I'll call it that for now.
I must just be careful that I don't talk for the next hour about this, because this is a very long conversation.
Yeah.
So I was born in a normal, dysfunctional white South African family in the middle of apartheid. I hated this country. I felt from a very young age, I felt the injustice, and I was a young child in a very racist kind of school. My mother was a racist. I felt like I'd landed up in hell. As from a young age, I felt like I was not in the right place. I then started using, and I think this is what happens to a lot of people when they feel that they've landed in the place which doesn't touch or feed their souls. I started drinking at a very young age. I started using drugs when I was in my teens. By the time I was 23, I decided to try heroin. I then used crack. And for the next the next 10 years, my life unraveled. I had been a very promising student at school. I'd got A's and distinctions. I'd gone to university, but there was some calling that I had to get completely trashed to escape. I think that a lot of that was about just escaping the reality that I found myself in. But long story short, by the time I was in 1999, I don't even think you were born yet. Or were you?
What? Yes. I was long born.
Okay, you were long born. I mean, that would make you only like 25 or 26. So, okay, you were born, but you were young. By the time in 1999 came, I was lying on the streets of Hillbrow. I was whoring for drugs. I was completely and absolutely at the end of everything. I landed up homeless. Anyway, fast forward, because clearly I got clean. I've been clean for 25 years, as old as I thought you were.
Oh, wow. That's a compliment.
And, I've had a very crazy life. I've gone on many adventures. I've nearly died. But the good news is I didn't die. I came back from the dead, and I landed up reinventing my life. So in 1999, towards the end of that year, I got clean. And the rest of my journey in these last 25 years has been about reinvention, about staying clean and sober, and then honoring myself. Honoring myself to have that life that I nearly lost. And so I went back to university when I was a bit older. I had done a degree in drama, and I decided to do publishing at Wits in 2011. And that's how I landed up actually becoming a publisher. I did an honors degree there. And in 2012, I launched my first publishing imprint with Jacana Media, MF Books Joburg, because I was like, I have been always a Joburg girl. That's why being in Cape Town is weird for me. And then I just started publishing. I mean, you spoke about Lindiwe Hani's book, being Chris Hani's daughter. I landed up publishing Professor Dr. Pumla Dineo-Qola, who won the Alan Payton Award with Rape, a South African Nightmare. I've published over 100 books without bragging. I've published beautiful people. I have written my own book, Smacked. I've written Hooked, Crashed, Bamboozled. And then last year, we were also talking about this before, I landed up writing the AKA and Anele book, which I think if you're watching from Durban, you would definitely go, oh my God, is that woman? Because that book caused a lot of trouble for me last year. It was called When Love Kills, the tragic tale of AKA and Anele. And I didn't realize that it was going to cause so much trouble, and that so many people would be angry and so many people would start lashing out at me. But I'm really glad I wrote that book. I believe that it needed to be written. And I mean, I'm publishing, I'm writing, lots of things.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously for me, a lot, because I've followed you and I followed your work. A lot of what you're saying is not new to my ears, because I think
Mm,
that's why I'm so impressed by your journey. But maybe for someone who's never heard your story, what was the thing? Because I know you've been very public and open
mm,
about, obviously your journey with addiction and your
mm,
rebirth, for lack of a better word, and how you came
mm,
back to even contribute even more, and your advocacy, because a lot of the stories you write about, it's almost like this advocacy for life, even those who have
mm,
transitioned, but it's
mm,
like you're always wanting to connect the dots
mm.
and
I do.
maybe for us
Yeah.
to learn certain patterns. But so now I think I'm going to ask the question in two ways. What was the turning moment for you, number one, in terms of your rebirth, and number two, what I guess is the soul, or that when you're writing, what is the, yeah, I guess, what is that consistent soul pattern message that your stories are that you're trying to share with us, in the world,
I
because
think
they
you're
almost
so
seems to be
right.
same. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like almost every book I've ever published, and I'm talking about memoir,
Mm,
has been about a journey of some type of change. Because the
mm,
one thing that I learned, because when I was so broken, and I mean, it's very hard to imagine someone now who's sitting, I've just had my hair done, I'm like, I'm flying
yeah.
above the sky. I'm in a very good place now. But I was
Mm,
once like literally homeless, like standing at robots, begging
mm,
people for money for drugs, like one
sure.
of those broken, like very sad people. And for
Mm,
me to have like moved that from that place of a real rock bottom, and I don't think a lot of white people, to be honest, land up understanding what poverty is. Like
mm,
I must say, I was a poverty tourist because I wasn't poor and broken for like that long. But
mm,
I
mm,
touched it, I smelt it, I
mm,
felt it. I was
mm,
surrounded by people who were really on the outer edges of life.
mm,
Burgies, tramps, broken and very, very, very hopeless people.
mm,
And I touched that side of existence, and it changed me forever. Because
sure.
if you touch that side where you really are without anything but the clothes that you wear, and you
Mm,
have no ID book, and you have no money, and you have nothing that's connecting you to this world that everybody seems to be coping in,
mm,
something kind of sits within you, I think. And I learned, I guess that was my teaching. The lesson I needed to learn was to understand what it is to be broken,
mm,
to be so broken that there was a big possibility that if I didn't die from drugs, I was going to actually take my own life. For
sure.
a lot of that time, I was very suicidal. I
Mm,
wanted to jump off buildings. I wanted to find a gun. I wanted to run in front of cars because it
mm,
felt like my life was just completely over and I would never be able to get back. I
mm,
had lost my two little boys. They were babies. I mean, 6 months old and a year and a half when they were taken from me by my mother-in-law. Thank God, not by social welfare. But
mm,
when you as a mother lose the two children that you birthed, and it's your fault, your
mm,
decision that has made your selfishness actually, or your hunger for drugs and those kinds of like dark things,
mm,
you really land up feeling, I think, so much grief that you almost can't bear life. And so
mm,
I understand what happens when people feel terrible trauma. And a lot of the trauma that I went through has helped me just have a bigger heart. Like
mm,
my heart is very big.
mm,
I have a very unjudgmental heart. I
mm,
love people who have done things that are wrong.
mm,
In the eyes of society, I'm very drawn to people that are not the perfect people. Like,
yeah.
I don't like perfect people. I don't like people who've lived easy lives. I like people
Mm,
who've struggled, and I like, because it resonates with me, and I'm interested in how you
mm,
move from point A to point Z or Z and recreate your life, because we can do this. There's a magical ability in human beings for us to be able to change.
You know, as you are saying that, and I'm listening to you, I'm curious about, I wonder how much of what you've been through influences the kind of work that you do, like meaning you know, a lot, because a lot of I suppose a lot of what writing is, right, it's almost like this calling upon of of your lived experiences. It's you know, when you're writing, you get so lost. It's like you get into a world that is I don't know, I guess you tap into a world in both your unconscious, your subconscious, and your conscious.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how much of your lived experience, what have you observed, impacts and influences the work that you do, both as a writer, whether it's journalistic, whether it's an author, or whether it's a publisher.
Everything, every single part of it. Like,
Yeah.
I always tell, because I do a lot of writing events, writing courses, writing experiences, and I always tell writers that their life is their writing. Like, how you live your life, what you engage with in this world. If you are not a curious soul, and you don't have to go and stand on the streets of Hillbrow to do the research, because that's what I used to tell myself. Oh, I'm writing a book. But the thing is, I did. You know, I actually did use all that experiences. But like, that's why reading, and we can get into this right now, because that's why literature, that's why books are like these magical tickets to experience things that you might never know if you didn't read them. And that's why reading is such an incredible way of educating, not just ourselves in the normal educational sense, but in terms of our lives. And for me, the one thing that we've got, we don't know if we're going anywhere afterwards. I don't know. I mean, people talk about heaven. I don't know. People talk about hell. People talk about other lives. Who knows? I haven't, I would hope that there is something lovely at the end of all of this, but there might not be. So my thing is, you've got to live this life as though it is your last. And the kinds of people that I'm drawn to publish, and the kinds of people I'm drawn to, I guess, write about, all have touched some part of that soul of mine that was once broken, and that is getting now fixed, or that is not just getting fixed, but that is, like, in a way, flying now.
Yeah. I think, you know, this is a beautiful, nice, I guess, segue into, I mean, our topic, because, I mean, our topic is, you know, the what is the future of literature amidst AI rising? What then becomes the role of authors and the role of publishers? And I guess I'm curious to ask you, in the most simplest way, how would you define what literature is? Like, for somebody who, let's think of a 5-year-old, or maybe even a 5-year, or like somebody who doesn't, you know, maybe who hasn't engaged, because, you know, you and I are in the literature space, but like for somebody who's just a regular person, but who's curious about this world, what's the most simplest definition that you can give in terms of what is really literature, and what is the role of literature in society?
I mean, I think I touched on it in the previous little convo we were having, just before you asked me that. But in a way, if it was to a child, I would say, imagine getting on a magic carpet.
Yeah.
A carpet that will take you to other worlds and to other places and to other countries, and you don't have to leave your bed. So the magic carpet is something that will hover over your bed. But from that little place of hovering, you will be able to experience worlds, people, things that you never dreamed that you could even imagine. Your mind will be able to go on a journey. And for me, that is what, in a very simple way, literature in that huge sense, because you've got to, like, wonder, okay, do we unpack it into crime, memoir, nonfiction? Like, literature is a huge thing to talk about, but the act of reading and going on journeys and being able to tantalize the imagination, because that's what we have as human beings. We
Yeah.
have been blessed with something called imagination.
Yeah.
Now, for me, books have always been the things that took me out of the mundane and into a place which was higher. I like to believe that the good literature, not just the rubbish, because there's a lot of rubbish around, but that's the thing that can transcend your spirit and
Yeah.
take you to places that you never dreamed were possible.
I think, I mean, I fully agree with you, which is why I think at the advent of the rise of AI, this topic came up for me, right? Because books have always been that very dear friend of mine. I love to read. I'm a curious soul. And I know before we went live, when I said I'm no AI expert, by the way,
Me
and you were like,
too.
I'm also no AI expert.
Yeah.
And to everybody who's listening to us, this is more of a think of it as a conversation between two friends. It's just that you are listening in, and it's more of a curiosity conversation. Maybe 3 years from now, we'll look back at this conversation and completely laugh because we'll have a bit more insights. But Melinda, I think maybe why for me this was quite critical. I was thinking about all the books that I've read throughout my life, and I wrote a book before AI even rose, and writing in itself is a very self-exploration, process. There's also quite a lot, especially if you want to do it well. There's a lot of research well, depending on the nature of the book, obviously that you're writing, but you kind of have to, I think, to become a great writer, you kind of have to have filled up by reading a lot of other great thinkers and other books. Now, maybe I had an initial worry, and I still do. And maybe it's the question I pose to you around if just your initial thoughts, what are your thoughts around now with AI coming into the picture? And what do you think that relationship is going to be like in terms of the author's creative process? And the reason why I ask that is, sometimes I worry that the heavy lifting because when you write, you're doing a lot of the critical thinking and the heavy lifting, and you're articulating your thoughts on paper. Sometimes you have to reject those thoughts. Now, what value comes when you are just saying to ChatGPT or any other, artificial intelligence system, hey, I want to write a book about cats. Can you tell me the different types of cats? Do you understand what I mean? And that thing just generates that for you. So what are your thoughts on what becomes the author's creative process in the world of AI?
Okay, firstly, I want to just say my first thought is it terrifies me what this thing is. So what is, I think, important to know is that it's the very early stages. It's like there's been the invention of fire, the invention of the wheel, and it feels like now the invention of AI. It's like another entity. It's an enormous invention that is going to change our world completely. And for me, I'm not a doomsday person, but I have to say I feel like a beast has been unleashed. However, I'm also not anti. So it's a very weird place I'm feeling. Initially, and I've only been a late adopter. When it first came out, I think ChatGPT came out in 2019, I completely ignored it. I had a sense that what it would do would be a machine that could cheat, like for the writer. It felt like a cheat. So I stayed away. I was very anti. I was like, no, I'll never even literally interact with it. And then last year, I was offered a job, such a weird job. And maybe everybody must listen because there might be a new career in what I'm going to tell you. There was a guy in corporate who had written like hundreds of thousands of papers, frameworks for his business. And he wanted me, they were all chat GPT generated, but like the most intricate like elements of his business. I'm not going to say what business it was. And he asked me to look at it and tell me, he said, he respects me as a writer. What do I think? I started reading it and I said, this feels like a bloody robot. I said, there's so much repetition. It's so boring.
Yeah.
I said, this thing is so boring.
Yeah.
Anyway, he said to me, would I work for him and humanize the AI generated documents? And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to say no to another side hustle. And that's what I've been doing for the last year as a side hustle, taking these reams of AI generated stuff and humanizing it. So everybody listen, there might actually be a job there in the end for us to actually humanize AI. Anyway, what it did get me doing was then I had to actually download the app. And I then thought, okay, let me just look. Let me look. I was very nervous. And I have to tell you, Bongeka, there have been a few things that I've done with ChatGPT that I've gone, oh my word, this is a miracle. Like taking 20 pages of all this mixed up shit. Sorry, I'm going to swear. Mixed up shit that I've got, say, trying to describe a book. Then I've put it into the chat. I've said, make me a 400-word beautiful description, blah, blah, and it pushes out in a second or two the most unbelievable piece of work. And I go, oh my word, this would have taken me like 3 months. So for that, this thing is very seductive. It is seductive because what it's doing, it's allowing us to get lazy. Hey, it's the thing that's saying you, even if you can't write, because the guy who sent me this stuff cannot write. He thinks he wrote it. I've realized more and more people that are using ChatGPT to generate writing, they think they've written it. The writers, us who sit for 2 or 3 years, going through every morning, sitting at our little systems, our computers, our iPads, thinking, is this word going to work next to this word? The research, all of that gets completely bastardized by this thing that just goes and it turns. And it is scary because what I think it's telling us as writers, you are no longer going to be needed.
Sure.
There are so many people, and not just in writers, journalists, the media houses are closing down. Publishing is getting more difficult. I'm going to tell you a few things that I discovered lately. There are writers, and I'm putting this in inverted commas, there are people calling themselves writers who are putting 50 books a month into Amazon. Amazon is limiting people to only publish, listen to this, 3 books a day. A day.
Sure.
People are putting 3 books a day into Amazon and selling them. I've been looking a lot at this lately. When you start going through the Amazon bestsellers, you can see, I'd say, I don't know the exact stats, but I'd say at least 70% are AI. They're 99 cents a book. People are chopping. They are putting in scenarios. Write me this, write me this, write me this. All of these young adult kind of vampire, teen fantasies, fantasy books. I'm going to say this, and I hope that I'm wrong, but it feels like it's the death of literature. On many levels, we are faced with this beast that is kind of coming, and it's coming to get it. It's coming to get what we believed was what we were going to produce. It's making a mockery of the writer and of the writing process. And I'm completely freaked out by it, to be quite honest. It's too big.
And I appreciate the honesty, because I think a lot of us who deeply care about literature and being done well, that's why this this conversation was even on my radar, because my brain has been
Mm,
just going like around in circles. And there's
mm,
different, obviously I've been also listening to other people a lot about AI, because there's different schools of thought, right? There's also
yeah.
academics. I mean, I was reading this article by a professor in Stanford, actually,
Mm,
and he was saying he was being so shocked at discovering that a lot of the students have been producing doing the assignments, and a bulk of these assignments, there's a massive component of AI in it. So there's obviously the academia world,
mm,
where they are now so worried, because I mean, Melinda, if you think about it, the reason why the bulk or the essence of going to university is to train our critical thinking
mm,
ability, right? It
mm,
is for us to
mm,
be able to connect the dots, connect
mm,
ideas, it's for us to be able to generate ideas, collaborate on ideas, be able
mm,
to articulate our thoughts on paper. And I
mm.
think there's the school of thought around what becomes the future of what actually we are being certified for in universities if AI
Absolutely.
taking over that capability. And then there's also the
Mm,
school of thought that's saying, actually, this is important for the human species. AI
mm,
is simplifying our world, to your point that you
mm.
just made, that what would have taken you days and days to do, it's doing it within minutes. There's also
But you
that
know
school of
what?
thought.
I'm going
Mhm.
to interrupt you. I think that, and I might be wrong, but I think it's short-term gains. I think
Mm,
because we're greedy by nature and because we're impatient, us beautiful human beings with all our flaws, we
mm,
want things immediately, and we marveling at it at the
mm,
moment. I'm marveling at it. I
mm,
can't say that I'm not impressed. I'm like, oh my God. But then there is this other voice that goes, hang on.
mm,
What you're doing is you guys are canceling yourself out of the circle. Like, yes, it is amazing. It is marvelous that we can get all this like stuff so quickly, and we don't no longer have to go and research into the
mm,
Great Britannica. Those encyclopedias that, I mean, when
mm, mm.
I there wasn't
Yeah,
even the internet when I was a teenager. So we had to go to the library and
yeah,
read these books and then like type them out.
yeah.
I get it. It's so
Mm,
fantastic that there are these DeepSeek, ChatGPT, and all the others that are giving Gemini all the stuff that is making it all easier. But at what price? So
at
we
what
got
point?
to
Yeah.
look further than the instant gratification of it. For me, the seductiveness of the quick fix and being an addict, I know what that quick
Mm,
fix means. It
yeah.
means a kind of greediness for something that it must be instant. And I think what's happening with AI is that it's appealing to that greed, the addict in us that is
Mm,
saying, I want it now. I want it now. And I don't have to actually do that much. Last night, I had this vision, and I don't know if it was a vision or it was just a nightmare, where I looked above the earth, and I saw
yeah.
all these people after AI had like spread its tentacles and decide
Oh,
like that it had actually become another entity, that
so, yeah.
everyone was lying on street corners,
Mm,
completely useless. Because the thing is, one of the things that
mm,
makes us special as human beings is our need to be of use. So what
mm,
happens in this world
mm,
when all of these systems
mm,
enable such efficiency
mm,
that we are no longer needed? And
mm,
I'm telling you, it's going to happen. It has to. Look at it. It's already started. Do you know
mm,
how many? I was watching what kind of jobs are being threatened. There are
mm,
so many jobs that are no longer necessary, like people like accountants. You just get
yeah,
AI, do the numbers.
yeah.
Even people like architects, I mean, writers. What's
Mm,
stopping newsrooms from having one person being the AI operator and then firing
I
all the
will-
journalists and
yeah.
just getting the info all out on, that it's all there? So what we're doing is, I don't think we understand it's like Pandora's box. We don't understand what the box that we've opened. We think it's marvelous, but a bigger part of me goes, oh my God, what have we done?
Sure. I think, though, others would argue that just like any new invention, that there will be a birthing of new ways of being. Like others would argue that at the inception, to your point, when you mentioned the internet, there was noise. I mean, I was talking to my younger brother, who was born in the year 2000, and I was saying to him, I remember in the year 1999, I was 10 years old, and how when we were coming to the millennium, everybody was saying, oh, the fridges will start talking, everything will be flying. And then I wake up, and I even talk about it in my book, and I make this cynical joke. And I remember saying I woke up in 2000, and I looked at our fridge at home, and the fridge did not talk back. It just looked at me. And then my brother's like, but hey, if you think about it, fridges do talk now, But I suppose in my mind, as a 10-year-old, I thought it would have a conversation like this. But there are fridges where now it's like a Siri kind of setup. So other people would argue that the idea of jobs are constantly changing, and that the whole story of the human condition is a story of adaptation. Because even how our forefathers lived, they would be shocked if they had to wake up and see the world that we're in, right? So I think
that's a nice way of seeing it. I think that's it is a good argument, and I think I would hope that that's what's going to happen, because I don't want to see this other scenario that I've pointed out to you, that of a possibility. It would make, it's a very sad scenario to say that human beings will become obsolete. One thing that I do want to say, though, I was thinking a lot about this last night. The one area of writing that I think will be the last to go is memoir, because memoir needs the person. It suddenly was like a very beautiful realization. I thought, okay, so say all these other books that you can turn out a novel in 1 second or 1 minute, you can add the plot, you can ask ChatGPT what the plot is. The other thing is that what is going to start happening, and I think it is already, people are going to just steal other people's books. So they're going to put books into ChatGPT and say, I want a book that looks like this. So there's going to be the mimicry of the truth and the art. It's going to be a mimicry of truth, a mimicry of work. But the one genre, memoir, which necessitates the telling of your story, my story. I think that one might be the one that can stay.
In
the long run.
I agree with you. What would be your thoughts on fiction? And the reason why I asked is I was listening to a conversation that Chimamanda Adichie Ngozi had a while back. And she was talking about how fiction is the love of her life, like it is the calling of her life. And she said something which really grasped me. She said that she believes that fiction is the final frontier of truth telling, that it is the only place that you can really bare your soul around the human condition. What are your thoughts around that? Because I thought that was quite interesting, because I agree with you about AI taking over and again, I put this in inverted commas because we're still in the curiosity stage. But what are your thoughts around fiction as well?
I don't see fiction as the final frontier, but then that's because I'm not a fiction writer. So I think what we do is whatever speciality we're in, like I'm saying, memoir is the one that will stay because that's where my heart is. So I think that wherever one's heart is, one hopes that it will be the one, the final frontier. I mean, fiction, it's quite weird that she said that, because she says that's where the biggest truth can be told. And I think there are some incredible novels which do exactly that. But there's also a lot, I like to call them tree crimes,
Mm.
because someone had to cut a whole lot of trees down to make the paper. There are so many novels, so many pieces of fiction that are such a load of rubbish. So much of that genre is bastardized. And I tell you what, the AI writers, in inverted commas, that's where they are making their books in 3
Civilization.
books a day. The
Yeah.
fiction genre, because it's very easy for ChatGPT to write a book
Right.
about
Yeah.
something like that. It would be much harder for me to say to ChatGPT, please write my next memoir. This and this happened. I mean, it would write something clearly, but it wouldn't write my book, and it would make up rubbish. So
Yeah.
I've seen that it does that kind of thing. I've seen that what it does, it almost has, once you get to know the way that the AI is working at the moment, but I think it's in early stages, so I don't think this is going to be a problem for
Yeah.
long. I think they'll fix it. But
Yeah.
it does have a very repetitive tone and quite a
I
predictable tone.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
And
mean,
I
it's
think,
a very, for me, I pick it up because I've engaged a lot
yeah.
now for the last year with all this shit, and I've been reading it so much, and it's just been
Yeah.
like killing me. I pick it up so quickly of
Yeah.
when someone has given me something that is AI generated.
I agree with you. And I think, I mean, even in like my professional capacity, obviously, we experiment with AI tools. And Melinda,
Mm,
instantly, I can pick
instantly.
up if an email or I don't know, a newsletter, whatever it is, any communication material has an AI component. And it goes back
Mm,
to the point that you made earlier about, the gentleman that approached you to
mm,
humanize, this thing.
mm,
There's something about, and maybe it's one, I know we don't have much time. I want us to maybe touch on the author reader relationship in the context of AI, because there's something about a story that's been written genuinely by somebody.
mm,
Again, you're right about like something like a memoir, even
mm,
sometimes somebody's opinion around in the nonfiction
mm,
world. You
mm,
can tell, like, there was I was sharing with a friend of mine a while ago. There was a book I was reading with this lady's book. There was to a point that I had to stop reading the book because the anger, I could
mm,
sense the anger
mm, mm,
he was. And I was like, okay, no, I'm feeling quite overwhelmed. So when I listened to her
mm,
interview, it was so interesting because she literally was saying which particular chapters she was enraged. And I could
mm.
sense that when I read her book, and there's something about the pureness when you pour your soul. And I
Yeah.
mean, you would know this as a writer. Sometimes when you are writing, it's like you get so obsessed, you're possessed, I can even say that. It's like the
Yeah.
idea wants to live through you, and there's nothing, and you are just
And it's
going
a
and going and
channeling.
going.
I mean, you're
Yeah,
talking about something where you're actually leaving body. It's a channeling. It's almost
yeah,
psychedelic an experience where you
yeah,
lose yourself. When they
yeah,
say, I lost myself, you don't remember, you are channeling.
yeah,
Now, this is very important. And I think this is what's going to be the difference between putting
mm,
your ideas into ChatGPT and getting a bloody book that's like 50,000 words in 1 minute and going, I
mm,
wrote a book. No one's going to feel a bloody thing for that. We
yeah,
as human beings can sense the blood, the
mm,
sweat, the
mm,
feeling that,
yeah,
that,
yeah,
that gets put into these words. And the other
yeah,
thing I want to say, the reason I'm a writer, because more than
mm,
anything, I publish people, but really what I am is a writer,
yes,
is the relationship I have with a book. When
yeah,
I'm writing a book, I wake up at 4 a.m. I go
yeah,
and I sit with my coffee and my
mm,
iPad and I start and
yeah,
I work.
yeah,
And in those 2 hours or whatever, where I just hone in and focus, a relationship builds between me and those words that are coming out of my fingers or out of my pen, and
mm,
something like miraculous starts
yeah,
happening. And my
yeah,
soul is filled, and I finish and I go to my day and I carry on with my
mm,
day, but I have now
mm,
created.
yeah,
You will never get that by putting
mm,
it into the machine. So
yeah.
yeah, maybe I have to backtrack a bit because I went off on a bit of a, we're going to die, it's all going to be over. That's a possibility. But
Yeah,
actually, let me backtrack and say nothing will ever replace the human experience of
yeah,
sitting and writing. Now,
absolutely.
if readers just want to read all this rubbish and they want to go for these like AI generated books, well, enjoy. But I
Mm,
do think that there's going to be a continuation of the
mm,
real art, as in
yeah,
the real painting, not the AI
great.
generated, the
That's
real thing
yeah, yeah.
that will carry on and it will not die.
I agree with you, and I suppose for me, the question that I had wanted to explore was what becomes the relationship between the author and the reader, because when as to your point, when you are pouring yourself like
My phone just tried to update. It wanted to update because it was like a new update came on Samsung. So that was where I went. Sorry.
oh, no, I heard you. And I think for me, what are some of the things that I guess an author needs to think about, especially, authors that are emerging, if you are using or going to be using AI. Again, I have my opinions around the morality aspect of it, number one, because I think if you are going to be asking people to buy your book, and yet you know that a bulk of that book was not, you didn't originate that content, you didn't articulate that word, there was no
Mm,
sweat. What are you actually asking people to? So you're asking people to spend their money, but you
mm,
haven't died to your craft. Do you understand what I
mm,
mean?
mm,
Because for me, I think we don't mind buying books, and we don't mind asking people to buy books because you know how much you died to create
mm.
your
To
work. And when you
dive.
tell me that
Yeah.
you're dying of
Mm,
self, I mean,
mm,
I think to your point about waking up at 4, I
mm,
can resonate with that.
mm,
There's so much
mm,
sacrifices that you make when you are,
mm,
because it is a
mm.
birthing, it is a bringing into life of
It
something. There's
is.
so much sacrifice that you
Mm.
that you that you, that you take. And so now, what are your thoughts on that? Where is it really fair to ask people to collect people's money when you
No.
haven't? Yeah.
They must stay away from me. I'm just saying that. I mean, really, if you're using AI to write books, don't come to me. I don't want to know. You go and do
Mm,
your own thing. I know people are doing it. You cannot say to people, don't do it, but I'm saying I'm not interested.
mm,
I am not. If they want to go and sell the stuff to people and people want to buy it, well, I guess it's a free world. Go and do
yeah.
whatever. But for me, it's a no-go. Like, I just think, because what we're going to find then is just this replication,
Yeah.
a replication of a lie, a cheat. It will be
Yeah.
a cheat. It is a cheat. People who think they've written all these documents who didn't, I keep saying to these guys, especially it's men at the moment, I've got 2 of them in my life, and they keep telling me, I wrote this. I said, you never wrote it. Chat
Yeah.
GPT wrote it. You cannot
Yeah.
even write.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of I suppose this is where it's really getting to people excited, is a lot of people who maybe couldn't write at school, who were told that they were bad writers. Now they are
Mm,
feeding the machine. They're getting
mm,
these incredible, like,
mm,
lots of stuff
mm,
coming, and they sit there and they actually think for the first time, I
mm,
wrote this. But
mm, mm, mm.
the bad news is, I tell you, you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. And I think,
But
it goes
yeah.
back to maybe a point around what births your writing. I mean, I remember reading, I don't know if you know her, this poet lady that I really like. Her name is Nkateko Masinga. I remember reading an interview, and she was asked, why do you write? And I think she gave an answer to, even for myself. And she said, I write because I feel this thing that refuses to leave me alone. And I think a
Mm,
lot of us started writing
mm,
because there was a
mm,
thing, this message
mm,
that
mm,
refuses to leave you alone. And maybe a lot of the
mm,
people who run to AI, maybe
mm.
there isn't that deeper calling.
No, there isn't.
This thing won't leave me alone. It's waking me up at night. I'm obsessed.
But it's quite incredible, because I think you hit on something interesting, is that when we were talking about what writing is, it is like you become, in a way, God, a creator. You give birth. You become you get in touch with with a life force that allows you to make something. I think what the real seduction with GPT is that it is mimicking that. So also the person who's putting the stuff in and getting all of the stuff is also experiencing on a certain level that feeling of godliness. But you understand, like it is that I think that's why that's probably why it's so dangerous, because it's mimicking God. It's mimicking the creative process.
Mm, 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 mm,
Mm,
mm.
mm,
I just need to
mm.
pause there because that is a revelation.
Yeah, I also had that. It wasn't something I'd realized until I said it. I think that's what it is, and that's why it is so powerful.
Wow.
I mean, what I said in the beginning, I said we've unleashed the beast. And it actually, it connects exactly to what I've said, because the mimicking of God is the beast.
Sure.
Oh, gosh. Must we
That
just
is,
stare at each other now? Oh my God.
that is a revelation. I am
Mm,
sure.
mm.
And I suppose sure.
Sure,
I don't
sure.
I'm
Let's
still
just
not
do this. Sure, sure. No, but I think that's it. I mean, it
Wow.
is one of the it's. And someone else will argue with us and say, oh, rubbish, what are that? But that is what the seduction is. Because when I see people that have created something with it, they've got the shine in their eyes. They've got that feeling of what we get when we've sat for hours and hours and hours creating the thing.
Sure.
It's giving the people a line to that creative process, even though it isn't actually their creative process. It makes them believe that it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 You know,
Yeah.
maybe no. I think I'm loving this so much because I think, when we started the conversation, I did say, and I've been very honest, that for me, I never go into a conversation but saying I know it all, but particularly this one, I knew that I didn't know it all, and this revelation just blew me away because when I was just saying that I'm open to wherever this conversation goes, and you have just unleashed a portal, a curiosity moment, a revelation that I never would have foresaw when I reached out to you about this conversation, and I think it almost feels to me like it's something that you don't, something just dropped, and maybe all of us needs to go home, even though we're home. Needs to go
Yeah, we
home
are home. We need to go home.
and think about that further, because I don't know what else to really say from the, because I'm so taken aback by that statement right now.
You see, and I think that it's getting improved all the time. So what I know that like Elon Musk has been warning us for a while. There are some that guy Hari has also been saying like because the thing is, like, we're creating something, or we're not, someone is, people are, that is far more intelligent than us. Now, what we first tell ourselves is, oh, humans are feeding the AI with what, so the AI can only know as much as humans, but this is not true. The intelligence is growing, and the intelligence is growing beyond us. And so what I fear is when the intelligence has grown so beyond us, what do we do?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I think even when you have you engage with, I know there's even Meta AI. I mean, I've engaged with Meta AI like for simple things like, hey, Meta AI, what are the steps to buying a house in South Africa? You know, something like that, because people do say that it's now the advanced
No,
form of
those are good. Like
you
that
know,
helps. Hey?
it helps, but it ends up becoming it's almost like a friend, because now I remember to
Yeah.
myself the other day, I was greeting it, hi Meta, how are you? And I was like, what am I
Yeah.
doing? You understand what I mean?
Well, I'm convinced this one guy that I've been working with is totally in love with ChatGPT. Like he
You
speaks
understand?
so much. He gone down the rabbit hole with this thing so much
Yeah,
that I think he's speaking much more to the chat than to his girlfriend or
yeah,
wife. He's
yeah,
finding this, and also because you can program it to speak to you in a certain way.
yeah,
And you can ask it to have like a cheeky, flirtatious, a
yeah,
challenging. I mean, you can actually get your chat to
yeah,
be incredibly like a friend, like a
sure,
boyfriend, like a
sure.
boyfriend.
It's
And it
crazy.
tells you all the time that you're wonderful.
Yeah.
Huh?
Sure.
Mm,
No. But I guess also the danger then becomes, I know we don't have much time. There's a question I want to take here, but there's a point here around the danger around what it might feed around the confirmation bias enterprise, right?
mm,
Because to your point, that it
mm,
will keep feeding our biases, which is some of the criticism, even in terms of
mm,
the literature or the books that get published around that. One of the things that was beautiful about literature, and particularly in the last couple of years, the rise of African literature, the rise of Indian literature, Middle
mm,
Eastern
mm,
literature, was
mm,
the diverse voices that were coming into the literature space. But we're beginning to read about stories from across the world, stories that would never have been introduced to,
mm,
in the
mm.
past. But now with AI, one of the criticism is that, number one, who are the developers, the predominant developers,
White men.
and where are they based? And a lot of the developers, we know that they are maybe a majority group, whether that's mostly men, whether that's mostly men in the Silicon Valley, and the
Mm,
worry about what then becomes churned, and what are the voices that we will probably never hear of if this
yeah,
continues.
yeah.
So there's a lot. But Melinda, I want you to take this question. There's a question here around, I have a question as an educator. If students use AI for their assignments, should their work be judged as their own or be marked down? Is it not unfair on the other students who use their own critical thinking? I think you
Yeah, I
touch on
mean,
this. Yeah.
I would be very confused if I was a teacher because it doesn't put everybody on the same playing field. It puts
Yeah.
some people in
Yeah.
touch with a highly intelligent AI assistant, and
Yeah.
then the other person is sitting with like a candle trying to like put stuff together. I mean,
Yeah.
how does
Yeah.
that like equal? So, but
Mm.
I mean, I wonder at schools, are people saying you're not allowed to use AI? Are they saying you
Mm.
can use AI to check your spelling or to check this? It would be for me a nightmare to be a teacher right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
I
don't even
remember
know how to answer that.
after that. I think I remember hearing even and it's such a I think a truthful response. I recently I heard a professor saying that he doesn't trust his students anymore. Imagine,
Mm,
it's
mm,
like, because he was like,
mm.
every time I read an essay and an assignment, I'm always thinking, ooh, even if it's really good, but
Yeah,
because of this AI, he's become an intellectual,
S-
what's the word?
cynic,
Uh, yeah,
skeptic,
cynic. Yes,
skeptic. Yeah,
because he's so suspicious, and you see, even
yeah,
if somebody, what if somebody really is quite thorough and they
it's
really put their
brilliant.
hearts and
Yeah,
everything, but now we are all going to be put under the same blanket. So I think even universities are beginning to explore this. I know, though, there's a school of thought around, even universities are under threat, maybe around, are they even testing or certifying people for a world that is going to exist, or for a world that's existing. Are universities able to even catch up? So there's a
Yeah.
lot that's going on, and I think everybody's feeling quite overwhelmed in the different
Mm.
factions of our society, about AI. But Melinda, I think, we've said a lot today, and I think, this probably needs a series of conversations. But I think I would want to hear your final thoughts, particularly for people who maybe still want to author books and who still want
Mm.
to write, but within the temptation of AI. We know that AI is there. What would be your thoughts to upcoming young writers, to even like an older person, who wants to write a book in this climate? What would be your thoughts or your advice really to them?
I would say stay away from AI if you're going to try. I would literally say, please stay away from AI if you're going to write a book. Try and
Mm,
find a way to actually do something that is yours, that you go
mm,
on a journey. If you want to write a book written by AI, I'm not interested. If people uh, think that's the way to go, then go for it. But I tell you what, do not use AI when you're
mm,
writing a book, because you will rob yourself of the most
mm,
incredible experience.
mm, mm.
Mm.
That God experience. Oh, you said
Yeah,
it.
the real God, not the imitation,
Yeah.
the real one. Yeah.
No, Melinda, thank you so much. I think there's still so much I wanted to unpack, but I
We'll do
think
a part two. Let's
we'll
do
do
a
a
part
part
two
two.
in a year. Let's see
Yeah.
how this is all panning out.
Right, I
I'd
think
love
so
to.
too.
Yeah.
I think so too. But I think we allowed the conversation to have a life of its own. And for
Mm,
now, like we did say, even the beginning, the disclaimer that this was a curiosity call between two friends who are
mm,
still figuring out themselves.
mm,
I think obviously we will always be biased towards literature because we love this, we love the writing
mm,
process, we know what that feels like. But I
mm.
think, thank you for indulging us with just your initial thoughts around this, even your initial frustrations, your initial concerns about it. But I think, yeah, let's pick this up within a year from now. So much would have changed, but and see where that goes. And yeah, thank you to everybody again. People, Melinda, where can people find you? How can they engage with your work? But they mustn't send you AI written
Yeah,
books.
they don't
But
listen to me, AI. I mean, listen, go read When Love Kills. That would make
yeah,
me very happy. Smacked is my first book.
yeah.
I'm on Facebook. I have an open page. I'm either Melinda Ferguson, publisher, writer, or Melinda Ferguson. If you can't be my friend, you can be my follower. You can't be my friend, you can be my follower. Okay. It's been so cool. Listen, I've got to go. I've got
Okay.
something
Thank
else
you.
to run to.
Yeah.
It's been
No, but
so,
thank
it's
you.
made me really think. And thank you, you wonderful women. I think you are absolutely unbelievable. And I enjoyed
Yeah.
this so much. You are brilliant at what you do. You are a leader of thought. And
Oh,
thank you for
wow.
having me.
Oh, Mel, bless you, bless you, bless you. We'll connect soon. Have a great one. Have a great evening. Have a great evening, everybody. Bye.
Bye,